In 2020, a crack musician was sent to a prison by child support court for a crime he didn't commit. This man promptly escaped from a minimum security jail to the North Carolina underground. Today, still wanted by the government, he survives as a musician of fortune. If you have a problem, if no one else can help, and if you can find him, you can hire Jake Johnson with Untethered Livestream. Welcome to my mania.
Hello, what's happening? I was just taking a nap there. Well, it's good to be here. It's Wednesday. It's Waylaid Wednesday. Almost 30 episodes under my belt. The world's coming to an end. We're in the apocalypse proper. One for my homies. So, the police are getting disbanded. Criminals are on the rise. It's a good day for crime. I don't know what to say about that. I would say, don't tread on me. But you never know. Maybe some treading needs to be done. I am not left-handed. But that's the way the cookie crumbles. I think that the military ought to show a little force here and there. I think that we were doing pretty dang good in America before the outbreak, before the plandemic. And then all that went out the window when it was decided that it's a good idea to riot. Peacefully protest. So, the good news is in 2 weeks they'll all be dead. Or somebody's not telling the truth. I'm giddy with excitement to find out which is which. I can feel the pricklies on the back of my neck just thinking about it. On one hand, we have the WHO, the World Health Organization, telling us that you're a murderer if you breathe on somebody. You could be killing somebody's parents. Stay inside. Lock the doors. Don't come out. Unless you're walking on dry sand. Don't walk on wet sand. On the other hand, we have people saying, it's your absolute right to peacefully protest, so get out in the streets and join everybody. Join hands, touch people, spit on everybody. Hey, sooner or later, the truth will set you free or kill you. My question is when they're forced to say, yeah, that was all not true. Will they say that, or will they just start shooting? Because if they start shooting, I got a pretty good idea that shooting's going to happen in a reciprocal manner. And if you don't believe me, try me. That being said, I'm from Georgia. I'm a born and bred Georgia thoroughbred. I got kaolin running in my veins. I got red dirt down my back. And all of my cousins have an arsenal in the basement, metaphorically speaking. Small and large. I'm one of those cousins. I'll show my little toy, my little pea shooter. You'll never see my other stuff. Because my mama taught me not to threaten people. So I don't threaten people. I'm not telling you that if you come in, you ain't walking out. I'm not telling you that it would be the worst mistake you ever made. The worst decision ever postulated by that gray matter between your ears. What I will tell you is, this generation, this lost generation of people who have never experienced a hardship a day in their life, who's never tasted hunger, who's never been cold, who's never had to work in hell amidst the fire and the brimstone and the steel and the hot tools and sweat and gore, death. You don't know what you're asking for. That's what I'll tell you. You're asking for revolution, but you don't know what the cost of revolution is. Ask your parents. They've asked their parents when they were children, and they were told. You don't want to pay that price because it's more than you can bear. Take it from an old man, long-haired hippie, outlaw, whatever you want to call me. Trust me on this. Go home and read a book. Get out of the streets. You're not proving anything to anybody. You will never be remembered. And if you get the revolution you so desperately ask for, you'll never live to see it. I promise. That's not a threat. That's sage advice. Sage advice from the stage. See what I did there? I can talk. I'm not having a stroke. So, take this old man's advice and go home. Get off your high horse and try to make the world a better place, because the people you're fighting against don't actually exist. This whole notion of white supremacists and racists and other ists and phobes and whatever else you can think of to call somebody, those people don't actually exist. They never really did. Yes, there are some ignorant people in the world. Very few, might add. Those ignorant people form opinions and shout those opinions. And like ignorant people, they have no idea what to do with those opinions, so they generally just hang out with each other and share their opinions. They don't actually affect you. They never have. They never will. See, when I was a kid, the top 10 people on television and in movies were all black people. We had white people dressing like black people, and we called them wiggers. You remember wiggers? You can't say that anymore. Why? Because they don't want you to remember that. I went to a school that was 50% white and 50% black, and every school around was exactly the same way. There weren't even any Mexicans. Very few. My point is it wasn't a problem. Then we had a black president, and then it became a problem. It became a problem because of race baiting and shifting narratives and treating people like they're infants, taking away people's rights, pushing. Did you know that in 1950, it was more likely that a black man would have a family, married, and have a job than it was for white people? Think about it. Then Jim Crow happened, and all those things. A Democrat started it, and now you're calling yourself a Democrat, and you're continuing it. The problem with America is welfare, is incentivized solitude. It's more profitable to not have a man in the house because the government wants to be daddy. And you are allowing the government to be daddy. That's not how it works. All men are created equal, gifted by their creator certain inalienable rights that cannot be taken from you by government, which you are now allowing to happen. Those rights are getting awful thin. This video probably won't even be able to stay up. You probably won't be able to see it. I'll probably get some kind of flag or get taken off the internet proper. Whatever. I will not hold my tongue. There'll be no kneeling from me. You come to me and ask me to kneel, and I will tell you what I've told men before. I don't kneel for no man. The only time I hit my knees is for God, and you don't look like God. So you might as well go ahead and do what you came to do. Let's get it on. Because it's not happening. And every single person who kneels is a coward and should be shot right on the spot on their knees. But that's not going to happen. And I'm not advocating for that to happen. That's just how I feel about it. You catch me on my knees, do what you got to do. That being said, I voted for a better America. I'm not getting a better America. If one person that I voted for hits their knees, they lost my vote. And every person I can influence for the rest of my life. Because that's not what I signed up for. That's not what you signed up for. That's not an America that I think we should live in. That's not the America we lived in before. We stand. We don't kneel. We persevere. We don't regress. We fight. We don't cower. Doesn't matter if we win. Doesn't matter the cost. We fight. You fight. Or go home. Or go somewhere else. You're not wanted here. I speak for myself. I'm not advocating any kind of violence. I'm advocating abstinence. Don't let people take your inalienable rights from you. However you achieve that is fine. But the minute you give up your rights, you've given them up forever. They won't come back. Because the people that are churning the wheels don't want you to have those rights. They want you to be subservient to the government. They want government to be daddy. That's not government's role. All this talk about our would-be dictator Trump, there's only one party I see trying to be dictatorial. And it's not the Republican Party. Of which I am not a member, by the way. I am, whether I'm live or not, because I'm getting disconnect and reconnect for the first time ever. 30 episodes, I've never been disconnected from the internet. Imagine that. Still show 2 people watching. I have no idea whether that number is correct. If you're in the chat, shout it out. Let me know you're here. I may not even be live right now. I don't know, because I just got a notice saying that I was disconnected and reconnected and disconnected and reconnected. But I'm not going to stop talking. If I have to, I'll make 10,000 videos. You can't shut me up. I never will shut up. Much to the dismay of people who have tried. What I'm telling you is, there's only one way for this country to be fixed. There's only one way to solve the problem. That way is love and strength. You understand? Love and strength. Be strong, but love. The Bible says to love thy neighbor. That's the most important rule in that book. If you don't believe me, ask Jesus Christ. He said the same thing in different words. You know the golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. That comes from that statement, love thy neighbor. Because if you truly love your neighbor, you will not break any of the other commandments. The only commandment that doesn't involve your neighbor is the one that says, thou shalt have no other gods before me. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the one and the only. That's a different category. And then everything else involves the neighbor. Do with that what you will. But those are the rules. You follow the rules, you have a great life. You have a long life. You have a prosperous life. Choose not to follow the rules and suffer the consequences. It's been going on for generation after generation after generation times 70. Plus a little bit. And some water. I can tell you for 100% certainty that if you follow the rules, you may not always get what you want, but you'll always have what you need. How do I know that? Because I'm 45 years old. I've been driving since I was 11. I've had a job since I was 11, of one sort or another. I've been to college. I've been to trade school. I've got more certificates and notations than I have fingers and toes. I'm a 32nd degree Mason, which takes a little bit. I'm an ordained minister. I'm a musician. And in all that time and all those things that I put under my belt, I've faced hardship. I've been hungry. I've been cold. But I'm still here. And I've never gone 1 second longer than I had to before I got what I needed. And it's through no effort of my own that those things happen. If I get broke down on the side of the road, and if you don't believe me, you can ask people that have been with me. This is a true fact. I don't know how to call it. I don't know what you would say it is, but I can tell you that it happens. If I get broke down on the side of the road, 5 minutes will not pass before somebody will stop and help me with what I need. With exactly what I need. Like if my starter goes out, that's a bad example because that wouldn't break you down on the side of the road. You'd never get there. If I overheat, somebody will stop with water. If I have a flat tire, somebody will stop with a spare. It just happens that way. It always has. Always will. I have faith in it. I know it'll happen. I'm not even going to get out of my car and wave anybody down. I'll just sit and wait. 5 minutes. Somebody will pull over. Always has. I once walked from Sandersville, Georgia in the woods to Bamberg, South Carolina in the woods. I never got tired. That's a long way to walk. I never got tired. Not once. Not the whole trip. You know why? Because as soon as I thought to myself, man, I need to take a break, a car would pull over. I'd get in the car and the driver would strike up a conversation with me about God. Okay. So I'd talk with them about God and they'd take me just as far as I needed to go to get a rest. And as soon as I felt rested, that's as far as they were going. They'd let me off and I'd walk some more. Soon as I got tired, soon as I started thinking, man, my feet hurt, car would pull over. I wasn't thumbing. I was just walking. Now, think that's a coincidence? I'm talking there and back. Every single time my feet hurt, the car would stop and give me a ride until my feet didn't hurt anymore. When I got there, I walked up into a parking lot, Food Line parking lot, and sat down on a bench. I sat there for 5 minutes, resting. And I saw this white car drive by and the people were looking at me like that as they drove by. And I thought, that's odd. I mean, the parking lot was full of people. It was bustling. It was like 12 noon, so it was quite busy. Then the car backed up, and they drove back by me backwards, looking at me. And I thought, that's really weird. These people, you know, thinking I'm somebody else, or they about to try to sell me something? What's going on? They pulled back and stopped right in front of me, and somebody got out of the car and walked over to me, and I'm just ready. You know, I didn't know what to expect. I thought they might try to kidnap me or something. I didn't know. They said, we're members of a church right down the road, and the Lord told us to stop and ask you. We're having a sing tonight, and we'd like for you to come sing in our choir. Do I look like a singer? I must, because they thought I was one. They asked me to do the thing that I do for their church the minute I stopped in a state I'm not from. That's all I needed to hear. I knew that that whole trip was ordained by God. Every car I got into, they talked to me about God. I didn't bring up the conversation, they did. Every single one of them. I got stopped. I got picked up by black people, white people, Mexicans. It didn't matter. Every single one of them struck up a conversation with me about God. Why? Because apparently I was doing something I was supposed to be doing. Well, it turns out the reason that I did that, the reason I walked that far, was because a girl that I used to date called me and said that she was in trouble, and that this guy was trying to hurt her and her kid, and she didn't know what to do, and she just needed somebody to talk to. So she called me out of the blue. I hadn't spoke to this girl in like 5 years or so. So I decided I was going to go help her, but I didn't have a car at the time, and I didn't have any money. Let me take that back. I had $13. And before I left, one of my cousins told me that they didn't know how they were going to feed their child that night because they didn't have any money. So I gave them 10 of the $13 that I had to go buy their kid some hot dogs. And then I left with $3 in my pocket, which I bought a pack of cigarettes with, because you could do that back then. In cowboy boots, I walked mostly uphill through Rennes, Georgia. If you've ever been to Rennes, Georgia, you know that trip from Rennes to Augusta is pretty much uphill the whole way. About 60 miles of uphill. It'll go up and level off, and go up, level off, go up, level off. Why did I do that? I didn't even know what to expect. I didn't know what was going on in this girl's life, or if this person was actually a threat or just something she didn't like or what. But I felt led to help her. So I went. Come to find out, when I got there, what she had told me wasn't exactly the truth. She was kind of hooked on some drugs and had some issues of her own. So I brought her back to Georgia with me. And we walked back. And we never got tired. And we walked back dragging 2 suitcases of hers with little plastic wheels. Now I've got a challenge for you. Get one of those suitcases with the little plastic wheels and go outside on a blacktop pavement and drag it around for a little while and see what those wheels look like when you're done. Drag them around for 30 minutes and see what they look like. They'll be all chewed up and barely there. Some of them will even come off because they're not designed for that kind of travel. We drug those suitcases for however many hundreds of miles it is from South Carolina to Georgia. I think it's like 112 miles, something like that. I don't remember exactly. It might be less than that. I'm not trying to, beef up my numbers or anything. I just don't remember. It was a good long walk anyway. I think it was like 112 miles. You can check it out on a map. It might be less than that. But still quite a walk. I don't care if it was only 50 miles. I think it was further than that, though. Yeah, because it's 60 miles from Rennes to Augusta, I think. Unless it's different. I didn't live there long enough to have it ingrained in my memory. Anyway, why am I telling you this? I don't know why, it just popped in my head. Point is I was taken care of. We got home at like 3 o'clock in the morning back to where I was staying. I laid down on a hammock outside, and I took a deep breath, and I could feel my heart beating. My feet were blue from the knees down because I was wearing cowboy boots the whole trip. I was bruised all up, feet hurt. 5 minutes went by, and I got this surge of energy, and I felt like I could walk across the world, like nothing could stop me. The world got a whole lot smaller that night because I had achieved that trip, and it was fine. I wasn't damaged in any way. I didn't get mugged. I didn't get murdered. I didn't get hungry. I survived. Oh, speaking of hunger, on the way back, we were going through, I think, Hamilton, South Carolina, or whatever little town is right there before you cross the border. We're walking down the street, and I was talking to the girl. I was like, we're going to have to figure out some kind of way to get some food. You know, we're getting kind of hungry here. And we're on the highway, walking on the street. And we come up to this Hardee's, and as we're walking by the red light there, somebody hollers from the Hardee's parking lot, "Hey!" So I looked and I said, "What?" He said, "Come over here for a minute." So we walk across the median, or not median, but you know, the little curve where you get off the highway onto the grass and over the sidewalk and into the parking lot. And we walk over to the guy and we're like, "What's up?" He goes, "You guys want some hamburgers?" "Yeah." "You giving them away?" He said, "Well, actually, yeah, we're about to close and we've got some left over, and I'd rather give them to you than throw them in the trash." I said, "Well, we'll take them." And we got enough hamburgers to survive the trip. Didn't ask. It was there. Why is this an important tale? It's a testimony. It's saying that if you try to walk in an upright, straightforward path, you try to do right, you try to do good, you don't have to be a saint, you don't have to go to church every day. I'm not a church person. You don't have to feign sainthood or Christianity or tell people that you're a Christian. You just have to try to do right. You have to try to be good. Jesus said that God makes sure that the sparrows eat every day. How much more are you to God than a sparrow is? How much more important? If a little sparrow has everything it needs all the time without having a job or without paying taxes or, you know, working for the man, but that little sparrow never goes hungry, it's always fed, it's always covered, it always has a nest, how much more are you than the little sparrow to God? You think he doesn't know what you need? He does. Sometimes you don't know what you need. You just know what you want. You're a flesh. You're carnal. You have hunger and desire and need. Taste. Thirst. God knows what you need. And if you do right, you'll always have what you need. That's the best advice I can give you. Do right. Know the difference between right and wrong, and try to err on the side of right as much as you possibly can. Feel guilty when you do something wrong. Pay the price. Pay the penance. Admit when you're wrong. If you're not wrong, fight like hell. But if you're wrong, say you're wrong and move on. That's the best advice I know to give. Thank you, sir. Hey, Mr. Mercer, what's happening? Good to see you here. I'm on a diatribe. Ranting about the world. So, for all you protesters out there, rioters and looters and thieves and morons and violence, go home. You're not helping the situation. You're not changing anything. Has it not occurred to you that the world is a hard place to live? I'll call him back. Has it not occurred to you that the government is an oppressive force. When you see people wearing their African garb and kneeling in the courthouse who are claiming to be on your side, never mind the fact that the African garb that they chose to wear was of the people who sold slaves to the Europeans in the first place. That's hilarious. Never mind that they have no clue that they're breaking their own cardinal rule of cultural appropriation. Does it not strike you as suspicious that these people who have been oppressing you for hundreds of years are now kneeling before you? Do you think you've won this fight? Is that what you think you're doing? You think that you've caused the government to shake in their boots? You know, the people who have nuclear weapons. You, with your loud voice and looting attitude, has caused the government to kneel before you in fear because you riot? Get a book, study the 60s. What's up, Great Sky Troll? See how it worked out for Martin Luther King Jr. or anybody in the past who went against the hierarchy of the people in charge. You think that you're winning this fight because you've burned a couple of targets? Do you have any idea what they did in the 70s, in the 60s, to people just like you? What's going to happen is they're going to lull you into a false sense of security where you think you've done something, you've changed the world, and then they're going to let you have it in ways you've never even considered. You will never recover. That's your lot. So take this old white man's advice, who isn't white, and go home. Tend to your family, because they need you. We don't. Diatribe over. Do I want to come to the beach today? Well, today is night, and I probably couldn't get there in time. Shoot me the details, and if it's later on in the week, I might. If we can get there. If we're not going to get in trouble for walking on wet sand. I've been thinking about packing up and going to Florida. Polk County. Why? Because I saw what the sheriff of Polk County said on national television. And what he said was, to you rioters and looters and thieves, I'm advising you not to break into homes around here, because you'll probably go right back out with a bullet in you. And I'm encouraging them to do so. That's my man. That's America. So I'm thinking hard about it. See, I'm from Polk County for a little while, about 15 years of it. So I've been thinking about going back. But I probably won't, because I have children here who are going to need my protection whether they know it or not. It's your beach house. Fuck anyone between you and it. Amen, brother. Grease up that AK-47. Or AR-15 or whatever it is you got. Get it good and lubed up. You'll need it. Because dumb people are not going to listen to sage advice. And civil war is coming. It's already here, actually. They just hadn't started shooting yet. But they will. And when that happens, it's time to take care of your own. I'm glad to see that I'm back on the internet. Did you know that back when I was talking about the riots and stuff, proper, I've said proper too many times this episode. I don't need to do that anymore. Anyway, I got kicked off the internet and back on like 3 times. I'm going on 30 episodes, and that has never happened, not once, until I started talking about the opposition. I'm just saying. So I'm glad to see that I'm back. You got an AK sporting rifle? That's good. We won't go into what I got. But I got. Mr. Mercer, what would you like to discuss now that I've gotten off my high horse? Or Great Sky Troll? Give me a topic. I'm in a talkative mood. Doesn't matter what it is. No lives matter. My life matters. I ought to put that on a t-shirt. My life matters. Speaking of t-shirts, I'm getting ready to release a line of t-shirts. So if you guys got any ideas, shoot them my way and I'll consider them. That's not a topic. I'm the talker, you're the talkie. See how this works? Panfish. Are you talking about like cooking fish in a pan, or is there a fish that's called a panfish? I'm not a fisherman, but I'll talk about it. Thank you. I appreciate the confidence. Got me a nice cup of coffee. Specifically Redbreast. Okay. You want to go there? We'll go there. 1 second. Typing with one hand. The red-breast sunfish, Lipomus arcturus, is a species of freshwater fish in the sunfish family. The type of species of its genus is native to the river systems of East Canada in the United States. This is not a very fun topic. Get a pole, get a hook, get some string, catch the sumbitch and cook it. That's fun. But you're going to have to go to Canada or North Dakota to catch it. You can't hear me anymore. Turn your volume up. Let me see. Yeah, I'm still broadcasting. I still have microphone. Anybody else having trouble hearing me? Says there's 4 people here. You got redfish, you got panfish in Buffalo Swamp, huh? Well, Wikipedia is full of shit then, because it says it's a Canadian fish only. It's a pretty fish though. I'm looking at a picture of it. It's got a red belly and a gray top, and it kind of looks like a perch. Kind of the shape, you know, the typical fish fin shape. Describe what a fish looks like to somebody. That's hard to do. Try rebooting. Let's see if I got any. Nope. Everything seems to be working right on this side. I apologize if you can't hear me. It's the government. They're after us. Where's Darlene at? I hadn't seen her in here a couple of days. I don't have a way of emailing her to let her know that I'm on. She may think I'm still off. I took a week off because I didn't think anybody'd be watching, because I figured everybody'd be guarding their stuff. You're keeping panfish, so you have some in your little pond? Is that what you're telling me? I would try to go for a fish. There's a type of fish, and I can't remember what it is, but it's an African breed that breeds real fast. Lots of them. You do a little research, you'll figure it out. But I'd go with that fish because they breed real fast, which means you can keep catching them and keep your population strong. Always, if you're going to keep fish for the purposes of eating them, I would always check out their breeding cycle to see how long it takes them to keep up, because it's like rabbits. If you're going to keep meat, rabbits are the best because they breed like crazy. 400-gallon box, that's pretty big. That's a nice size aquarium. That's not as big as Aunt Ben's pond was, though. She had a pretty big pond. You remember that? Oh, there she is. And she got her name fixed. And she's having trouble. Well, I hope you can sort it out, because I hadn't spoke to you in a while. Nice to have you here. Are you on a computer or a phone? Catch and keep. That's a good way to go about it. Well, it's nice to see you, Darlene. Thank you for coming. I apologize for being off for a week, but like I said, I figured everybody be guarding their stuff, trying to keep looters out, so I didn't figure it would be the time for me to be on here talking, so I took a week off. You're internet dumb? No, you're not. You're just a boomer. You can hear again. Excellent. All right. What would you guys like to talk about now that we got some people to talk to? I went on a diatribe earlier about what the state of the world in this current environment. I'm ready to talk about something. New phone, trying to figure it out. If I was you, I'd invest in a laptop. You can do a lot more with a laptop than you can a phone, and you can see it better too. Thank you. I'm glad to be back. Glad to have somebody to talk to. Monday night I came on and nobody showed up, so I made it quick. Hang on a second. Hey, I'm on a podcast. Can I call you back in a few minutes? No problem. All right. Woohoo. So, sounds good what I already got going. All right. Okay. I was going off. Yeah, I was kind of. I'm a little upset of the state of things because this isn't new. We've seen this before. All the things that are happening now has happened already. These people are just thirsty for something to belong to, for some purpose, some greater cause. And they're reaching for all the bad stuff because they don't have any alternative. It's been so good for so long that people just, they don't have anything to fight about, so they're making shit up. Well, unfortunately, that's destroying the world we live in. And it's not going to get better anytime soon. So I hope that cooler heads will prevail and somebody will put their foot down and make some of this stop. Because they have the power. They're just not using it because they're scared of how it will look. Well, I don't care how it looks. I'm tired of all the monuments getting tore down and all the cities getting destroyed and all the small business owners getting run out of business because of selfish little children who have never suffered a hardship a day in their life. I'm tired of that. I'm tired of people who have worked for their whole lives to achieve very little and then have somebody take it away from them because they're selfish. It's not good. I only get a day or two? You mean I can't come move in? Well, I'll tell you what. I've got a ride to go on with my motorcycle club somewhere in the next 2 weeks. I don't know exact date yet. And they're going to Myrtle Beach. I think. Somewhere down there anyway. And if it coincides with your timing, I may just drop in. Because I know it's down there somewhere. I'll be taking my baby for a ride. You seen my baby, didn't you? So anyway, I think this whole thing has gone on long enough and somebody needs to say, okay, you made your point, now shut up. This is how it's going to be. You see, the thing that they're fighting for doesn't actually exist. And the people that they're fighting against doesn't actually exist. So what we're doing is an exercise in futility across the whole of the world at this point. Now, one thing I will tell you is that this is ordained. It's going to happen. This is the time, all right? Let me tell you what happens. The reason that God destroyed this world with the flood was because of corruption. Because fallen angels chose to intermix with people and a whole lot more. It ain't just about seed. It is, but there's more to it than that. Last time we spoke on a large topic, we were talking about the Tower of Babel and why that all happened. What I didn't say is that they were not just building a tower into heaven, because you can't really do that. Because if you got high enough, you wouldn't be able to breathe anymore, and that's not going to happen. But what God said was, if these people can achieve what they're achieving, then their imaginations is the only thing that can stop them. Now that's a powerful statement. What that leads me to believe is there was more going on than just building a building. That building housed something important. Something they weren't supposed to be having. That man is not supposed to happen. No, you haven't missed the music. We're just talking. I'll get there. So, the destruction of mankind was because they had access to something they weren't supposed to have. That was not built for mankind. That's the crux of the reason. And when those angels were caught doing what they were doing, they were put away. And the Bible says that they were put away for 70 generations. Now, if you do the math, that's about 4,900 years ago. If you take the period in time when the Tower of Babel was built and add 70 generations to it, which is 30, 70, or 120 years, depending on which type of generation you're talking about, you will come up to the very beginning of the 1900s. Now, for thousands of years, mankind was on horseback, lived by fire, lived wherever they could build a way to live. But that was the extent of their technological advancement for thousands of years. And then in 50 years, we went from riding horsebacks and building fires to watching VCR tapes and getting ready to start talking on iPhones. See what I'm saying? 50 years, the world exploded into this new thing that it never was before. How is that? Because that coincides with the end of that 70-generation prison sentence, when these things are released back into the world. So they have nowhere to go. They are spirit. They're disembodied spirit, but they are spirit. They can't go back to heaven because they've fallen. There is no hell, so they can't go there either. So where do they go? They go here. Every demented thing that you have ever seen comes from that spirit, from that type of spirit. That's what causes it. You understand that the human body is just a meat bag. You're plugged in, your consciousness is plugged in from somewhere else. You're not actually physically part of this body. This is just a vessel. When it dies, the silver cord parts, you go back to where you came from. You understand that? That's called the death procession. The silver cord parts, the clay pot breaks, the consciousness goes back to the Father who gave it. Why does it do that? Why is there a cord symbolically from your body to wherever your soul is? Because you're plugged in, your consciousness is plugged in from somewhere else. That's why science can't describe what a consciousness is. They can't make a determination because there's nothing that they can find, because it's not part of this world. You understand? It's from a different place, a different container. We're in this container, but our consciousness is in another container. And there's a connection somehow between the two. And when your body runs out, it's like a battery. When it dies, it's no longer useful. You're never going to use it again because it's no longer useful. So it decays and goes back to the dust it's made of. And then the consciousness goes back to whatever it's made of. Well, that consciousness can be corrupted, can be hacked into by other entities, bad things that are in this world. There's no such thing as demons like in movies. There's no such thing as monsters, but there most definitely are spirits in this world, good and bad, and benevolent. You can find evidence of this when Jesus came across the man who was possessed, and he asked what his name was, and the demon said, "We are legion." Why did he say that? Because many demons had entered into this consciousness. That the word legion means many. So anyway, they begged Jesus not to send them for judgment. Please, don't send us there. That's the end. We can't take that punishment. So what did he do? He put them into a herd of swine, and then they went off a cliff, rather than the punishment for what they had done. That's pretty heavy. If you think about it for a minute. Whether it's symbolic or not, that's a heavy concept to wrap your head around. No such thing as demons, correct? The word demon was invented to describe something. It was invented by rabbis because they didn't have a word to describe what we would call a familiar spirit. The word demon means knowledge. That's what it means. It means understanding, a concept, a full thought out process of thought. So when you watch a movie and you see these little green monsters that come from hell, let me explain something to you. Hell doesn't exist. Hell is mentioned in two references in the Bible. One is death and the other is Gehenna. Gehenna is a valley outside of Jerusalem where they throw trash and burn trash. And the maggots crawl in and out. And there's decay and rot from thousands of years of throwing your trash in this little pit. Anybody from Georgia knows full well about this because we got places on the side of the road that go down into a gully where people throw trash. That is what Gehenna is, the same concept. Those are the only two times that hell is mentioned in the Bible, referring to the grave, death, or the trash pit, the heap, the ever-burning, smoldering soot nastiness. But the place hell that we've been taught in churches, with hell, fire and brimstone, and the man with the pitchfork and the long-handled underwear, that doesn't exist. Satan is in heaven right now, in chains. He is not on this earth. He was for a time, then he was removed, and he'll be again for a time. But this time, when he's removed, he's going to be thrown into the lake of fire. The lake of fire is what you refer to as hell. That is an eternity. Why isn't it an eternity? Because if you ever drop fat on a flame and watched it go psst and burn up, that's what's going to happen to what gets thrown into the lake of fire. It's going to psst, burn up, cease to exist, no more. That is the second death. That is the thing that you should be afraid of. The Bible says not to fear anybody that can take your life, but you should fear that can take your soul, meaning the second death. Because that's something to be afraid of. To be separated from God for eternity is not a place you want to be. So no, there are no such thing as demons. Those don't exist, period. It's just not there. There's no such thing as ghosts either. When you die, your spirit goes back to the Father who gave it instantly. It's not here. It doesn't stay here. There's no place for it to stay. Unless they go to, the Peekaboo Lounge, maybe. Get their chains at Ace Hardware. I don't know. It's not real. Those things don't exist. I defy you to find us an example where it does. It doesn't. When Saul, the king, the great King Saul, was in battle for the final time, he was worried because he was facing a very particular foe. And he did the thing he was told not to do. He sought mediums to raise the spirit of Samuel the prophet. And he spoke with Samuel the prophet's spirit. And the spirit said, you're going to lose this battle. You're going to end with your neck hanging on your own sword. Meaning that he's going to kill himself. That's not what Saul wanted to hear. The reason Saul lost that battle was because he disobeyed God. And instead of having faith that he would be delivered from his enemies, as they always have been when God ordains a battle, he sought the devil's information so that he would have an edge on the battle. He wasn't supposed to know the future. And the Bible warns that it tells this tale because the spirit he was talking to was not Samuel the prophet. It was an imposter. Because Samuel the prophet is with the Father. He's not out here in this world. You can't talk to him. He doesn't exist anymore. So what he was talking to was one of those familiar spirits that was tricking him, tempting him. That's what you should be afraid of. A spirit is not a ghost. They're two different things. A ghost is a fictional thing that was invented for drama's sake. A spirit is a very real thing that can influence your life, good or bad. The Bible says Jesus went to hell. No, it does not. The Bible says that Jesus went to Abraham's bosom, which is not hell. It's a holding place. We say Jesus went to hell. That's a tradition of man. That is not in the Bible. And no, Michael has bound Satan up. Satan is in chains at this very moment in heaven, guarded by Michael the archangel, according to the Bible. What Jesus went to do when he died was to free all of the people who have been waiting for Judgment Day. You understand that when your spirit dies, you cease to exist on this earth, but you still have to get to Judgment Day, the white throne judgment. That's when you're sentenced to either heaven or hell, respectively. And I'm using the word hell because that's what we all know and understand. That is not exactly the way it goes. But you can check all you want. I'm right. At least I think I am. What Jesus did was, before Jesus died, there was no sacrificial lamb. You see, blood has to cover for a sacrifice. This is a thing that has been a pact between God and man since the beginning. Originally, if you committed sin, you had to offer a sacrifice to cover that sin. The blood of that sacrifice was the atonement for that sin, because something has to pay for that sin. You understand? When Jesus died, he bought you wholesale. He paid for everybody's sins with his death. He became that sacrifice. He is the lamb. When Abraham was told to go up into the mountain and take his son to murder him, it was a test. It was an example. It was God saying, this is what I've got to do. Are you willing to do it? Why would I do it if you're not going to do it? But Abraham agreed, and begrudgingly and most painfully drug his son up into a mountain to be murdered for a sacrifice. And in the very last minute, God provided a lamb. There was a lamb there in the bushes. Perfect. Just perfect for sacrifice. As the knife was in the air to strike Isaac dead, God stopped it. He never intended for Abraham to kill Isaac. He just wanted Abraham to understand what that sacrifice was, because if you're a father, you know what it feels like to lose a child. You don't have to lose one to know it. It's the most devastating thing that has ever happened to anyone ever. It is an unbearable price to pay. And God wanted Abraham, who is the father of many nations, by the way, to understand what this sacrifice was and what it meant. So he said, kill your own son, and that'll be a sacrifice. Abraham, being a man of God, did what he was told. He didn't like it. He didn't want to do it. It hurt him deeply to even consider taking his own son's life. But he did it because God told him to. And he is obedient above all things. And God stopped him and provided the sacrifice. And he said, you don't have to do that now. I just wanted you to understand. So Jesus is that sacrifice. He did get murdered. And that murder paid for all sins thereafter. Right? Well, that was 5,000 or 6,000 years into life after the flood. So as you can imagine, a lot of people had died before that happened. Well, that's a lot of souls that don't have a sacrifice to cover their sins. When Jesus went into Abraham's bosom, that's what he went there for, to deliver them and to give them the same deal that everybody else has, which is your sins are paid for. You're bought and sold. Your sins are already paid for. No matter what you do in your life, your sins have been covered. Now those sins are what? They are breaking of the 10 Commandments. You break any of the 10 Commandments, and those sins have been paid for. You can get yourself written out of the book of life if you keep offending. But Jesus said 70 times 70, meaning your sins have been paid for a lot. You can screw up a lot and still come back from it. I'm not suggesting you should, and I'm not suggesting you should sin knowing that, because when you know it and you sin, then you're accountable. If you sin in ignorance, you're not accountable, you see? So that's the reason Jesus went into Abraham's bosom, which is paradise. It's the place where souls are kept. There are two places like that. There's a great gulf between the two. You know the parable of the rich man and dying, and he says, well, let me just warn my brother. He could see him, but he couldn't talk to him. because they were separated by this great gulf. The good and the neutral and the bad. The good have another arrangement, I suppose. But that's how it works. When you die, your spirit used to go into Abraham's bosom and wait. Now it doesn't do that. Now it goes straight back to the Father who gave it. Jesus said, I went to prepare many mansions for you in my Father's house. That word mansion does not mean big house with a flat screen TV. It means it's a provision for your spirit in God's house, where he is, in the third level of heaven. So, the whole point of all of this is that when you die, you go back to the Father. You can't have it both ways. You can't linger in the world and be a ghost if you go back to the Father. You just go back to the Father. Now, the reason Jesus died was because the world had sinned so much that there was no covering it. There was no sacrifice that would do the job. So Jesus had to become that sacrifice. He is your advocate. It's like having a lawyer in court. And he has the proof of your innocence, because you've already been judged to some degree. And you've been let off. The fine has been paid. So now you're free to go. That's kind of how it works. That's the best way I know to describe it anyway. But as far as demons go, no. There are fallen angels who entered this world, which means they had a flesh body, and they mated with people, and they had offspring, and that offspring became the corruption of the world. Now, if you read the Torah, the first 5 books of the Bible, you'll think, man, God seems awful vengeful and hateful. And he told Joshua to go in and kill every living thing, man, woman, child, and baby, and animal. Kill it all. Wipe it off the face of the earth. Why would God say something like that? That's pretty hateful. Well, there's a reason for it. Because that society were not human. That society were a corruption on this planet. And what God was doing was trying to protect humanity from that corruption by eliminating it. And for a while, he sent people out to fight these battles and get rid of these cancers on society. But it was overwhelming. They had proliferated. The Bible said at the time of Noah that Noah was the only human being alive that had not met corruption. He was the only bloodline that was pure. The rest of the whole of the world was corrupt by this filthy seed. That's why it had to be destroyed. It would have never had to be destroyed had they won the initial roundup, so to speak. That's why people were told to go in and murder certain people, because they weren't supposed to be here in the first place. This isn't a world for angels. This is a world for mankind. Angels don't belong here. This isn't their creation. This is God's creation for man. And man is the only thing that's supposed to be here. That's naturally not the case. There are things here that are not man. There are things lurking in the shadows. There are things right around the corner. There are things right out of your periphery that's affecting your life. But those things are not supposed to be here. And the battle has been from the beginning to eliminate that corruption. The Bible says that you will not fight monsters and demons and things that can physically hurt you, but you'll fight principalities and things of the air. You understand what I'm saying? That means the people in high places. That means the people that are quote unquote in charge. Those people are corrupted by bad spirits. There are things in this world that should not be in this world, and our leadership is one of those things. You ever watch those crazy videos on the internet about the reptilian people and how all the world leaders are reptilians and this and that and the other? Well, they're not that far off. Let's just put it that way. No, they're not lizard people, but there are some things going on in higher societies that should not be going on. look into spirit cooking and things like that. You'll understand what I'm saying. At the highest level, it's very satanic. If you think I'm wrong, just go visit Washington on a day when they're not rioting and just look around at all the false gods and things that are present and things that you had no idea were there. I've been there, and I can tell you that the whole thing looks very Roman and very Greek. Well, if you look into mythology, the first thing you're going to learn, if you actually look, is that America is the only place that calls that stuff mythology. We're the only people that teach that it's a fairy tale. You go to Greece, and they teach it as history, because it is history. And those things that they worship that we call gods, little g gods, they didn't call them gods. They called them what they were, titans. They were the fallen angels and the offspring of those fallen angels who lived in those days. Men of old, men of renown. Those people existed. You go look into Norse mythology, you look into African mythology or Hopi Indians, all the way back, you'll find there's a flood story, and before that flood story, you'll find that there were giants in the earth in those days. The word giantus, or giant, means many things other than tall. It also means they were more than the regular people. They were bigger. They had more everything. And they were violent. And they, for a long time, murdered each other. They were fighting amongst each other. The big titans had to watch their offspring kill each other. And then the flood took care of the rest. Most of the rest. There's still some of that in the world today, but not nearly like it was. You have to imagine it like it was. Jesus said that in the end times, it will be just like it was in the days of Noah. Well, the days of Noah were pretty trippy. There were some things going on in those days. Some things that you don't even want to know about. The twisting of genetics and the twisting of humanity. You know those pictures of minotaurs and people with hawk heads and Pan and things like that? Those things existed for a time. They were here. That's why we have history of them. Keep in mind that a large portion of history is no longer with us. We have forgotten more than we'll ever know. The world existed before the flood. All of that's been wiped out. That was all forgotten. Everything we have on this earth today came after that flood. God only knows what it was like before it. But you're talking about magic. You're talking about spirits roaming the earth in bodies. They had bodies back then. You see, angels are immortal. They don't die. So when they were on earth, they had physical bodies that they could interact with people with. When the flood took their lives, it also took their bodies. But now they're still here. They just don't have bodies. They're spirits. You following me? That's what you think of when you think of the word demon. That's what it is. But they didn't go anywhere. They're still here. Now, for a time, they were imprisoned in the abyss or the deep places. Probably Antarctica. There's some that talk about being put under a river in Africa. 2 of them were put there. I don't know where all that. There's different locations where they were said to have been put, but they were put in the deep places. What don't make sense? What are you saying doesn't make sense? I'll try to make it make sense. The flood did not kill them. The flood killed their bodies. You missed the part where I talked about your consciousness being in another location? When the angels left their habitation, the Bible clearly says that they left their habitation. They came here to earth, right? They left their estate, their heavenly estate, in which they were spiritual bodies in heaven. They left that place. They're no longer there. They came here. The only way to be here is to have a physical body. So however that happened, they have physical bodies. But an angel is immortal. They don't die. They were the first. Angels and Adam were the only things directly created by God that are alive. Everything in the Garden of Eden and everything before that was directly by the hand of God. Everything after that is the world working as it's supposed to work. Things giving birth to other things after their kind. You understand? So, but before the Garden of Eden, everything was created by God, by his hands, or his mouth, or however he did it. He created direct him to the creation. Adam was the only human of the Adamic race that experienced that. He wasn't born, he was created. Everything after Adam was born, not created. You see what I'm saying? Angels are included in that package. He created the heavens and the host. The host is the angels and the spirits and the consciousness. When God said, let us make man in our image, who do you think he was talking to? He was talking to us, because we're part of that host. Every living thing that has ever lived and ever will live was created at that moment and called the host of heaven. Now it is upon man to be born once. You have to go through this earth. So you're born and you have a flesh body that lives only on this earth. This flesh cannot go to heaven. It can't go to that dimension. It's part of this dimension, and those two things don't mix. But your spirit can. So when you die, your spirit is separated from your body and put back where it belongs, and your body goes back to where it belongs, which is dust, which is what it's made of, dirt. Does that make sense? Well, angels are the exact same way. They were in the heavens, but they chose to come here. We didn't choose to come here. We were put here. They chose to come here against God. The Bible says that a third of the angels fell. That's 33 and a third, 33 and a third, 33 and a third. That's 2 against 1, basically. Half of God's angels are still in heaven. The other half are here. Well, a third are here. So if you know anything about math, that means that the good outweighs the bad by a third. It's 3/3 in 100. All right. When the angels chose to come here, they had to come here in a specific way, because the only way for a spirit to be here is to be in a flesh body. So they became flesh. I don't know how they did that. It doesn't say, but they did it. Probably the same way they made half man, half bulls. I'm just saying. Now, for an angel, it does not matter what body. I want you to really think about that. Take into consideration what I'm saying right now. It does not matter what body, just has to have a body, a flesh body, made of flesh, right? Notice that when Jesus cast out legion, they went into swine. All of those spirits went into that herd of swine. And they chose then to kill themselves and be freed rather than face the punishment of being here, which is what they did. But when they were freed, what's the next step? They have to find another body to get into. Otherwise, they can't be here. You see what I'm saying? That's the thing that they're punished for, being here. They're not supposed to be here. This isn't their habitation. That's the sin. For an angel, it does not matter what flesh. You could take a bull and a person and sew them together, and an angel can inhabit that flesh. A person cannot. You can take a little gray alien, and an angel can inhabit that flesh. You don't think that's possible? Look into what a golem is. It is literally a clay doll that an angel inhabits. Basically, the same thing you are, a clay doll that your spirit inhabits. And when your clay doll breaks, the spirit goes back to where it came from because it's attached. Angels are not attached. We are. That means we can't go into any kind of flesh. We can only go into this kind of flesh. And when your flesh dies, that attachment pulls you back to where you came from. That's what the silver cord is. It's an attachment. We are physically attached to the other dimension through that cord. Angels are not. They don't have a silver cord. They're not people. They weren't created by God to be people. They were created to be angels and serve God in heaven, not on this earth. When they come to this earth, they have to have a body in order to live here, in order to affect, to manipulate the world. They can whisper in your ear, but that's all they can do in spirit form. They can tempt you, but you have to make the decision to listen. So, when the flood happened, all of those bodies were destroyed. And those spirits were captured by the other angels and put in the deep places for 70 generations. That was their punishment. It's a bad punishment. Nobody wants to do that again. You understand? That's why there will not be a second influx of those angels being on earth in that form, because it was a terrible, terrible punishment. And nobody wants to make that mistake again. That's why they begged to go into the swine rather than to face the consequences of being here in a flesh body, which belonged to that man who was possessed by them. You follow me? So does it make sense now? However, as in the days of Noah, so will the end times be, meaning that there will be something else occur that's like unto what was happening before the flood in the end times, which we are deeply into at the moment. Have been for the past 200 years. It's been steadily coming. Things have been steadily taking place. Well, since about Napoleon. That's about the first influx of the Antichrist, which is also a spirit, or multiple spirits, who knows. But that spirit has kinds, and it's been happening throughout history over and over and over again. The Pope is a type for the Antichrist. Hitler was a type for the Antichrist. Napoleon was a type for the Antichrist. Nimrod was a type for the Antichrist. Nimrod was up to some shady shit. He was doing some stuff in that tower that was not of human nature. That's why it was destroyed and the languages were confounded, because he was attempting to go behind God's back. God's not afraid of a man. He's not afraid that they were going to get into heaven and take over. That's not what that was about. It was about Nimrod, or in Merkur, depending on who you're talking to, in Shinar, or modern day Iraq. It was about him doing some stuff that was not of human nature. You see, when angels came to this earth, and you need to read the book of Enoch to back me up on these things, because they're not in the Bible. They're in the book of Enoch, they're in the book of Jasher, they're in the book of Ages. There's different books that the Bible endorses. You can find those books and read them, and they will give you more information about these things. When the angels first came here, they taught mankind spells and incantations and different things that they didn't know before, that they weren't allowed to know. They were given, like Prometheus, that gave man fire, right? Well, Prometheus was a fallen angel, and he taught man the art of fire. He also taught him the art of making weapons and destroying life. Not something mankind is supposed to know about. When the devil was in the Garden of Eden, he questioned God like a lawyer would. Is that what God said? I don't think that's what he said. Surely he didn't say, if you eat this fruit, you'll die. No, 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 no. If you eat this fruit, you will be just like God. You will know what God knows. What is it that God knows? The knowledge of good and evil. The knowledge of things good and the knowledge of things bad. That's what gods know that we don't. That's the secret. That's why the tree was called the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, which is a metaphor for Lucifer, the morning star, the Son of Man. Oh, I'm just scratching the surface, darling. This is what I do. I've been doing research for the past 35 years. Hard research, deep, like crazy manic research. Because I endeavored to understand the world I live in. That's a tall order, by the way. To grasp the world you live in and not just be a non-player character and just, happen along. Just run into whatever comes my way. I wanted to grasp. I wanted to know what I was living in. So I set out to learn. And the more I went, the deeper it went. And the more I learned, and there's things I still don't understand fully. And I will tell you, these are all things that I know. Find out for yourself. Don't listen to man. Don't even listen to me. Learn for yourself. I'm just giving you some roadmaps, some pointers to go in that direction. Yes, I know about the fig tree. What would you like to know? Why did Jesus curse it? Or why that was uncharacteristic of Jesus to do? It's a metaphor. Yes, it happened, but there's a reason it happened. It cursed it because it didn't bear the fruit that it was designed to bear when it was designed to bear it. It was corrupted. So he cursed it to not bear fruit ever again. One could say that that little swath of the Middle East is the fig tree. You know, that whole desert area that's barren and looks like no life is there, but people are there. That place used to be green and lush. Egypt used to be green and lush, and a river came right up to the foot of the pyramids. A big river. Now it's all sand, and it always will be. The fig tree signifies the arm of the Adamic race other than the one that Jesus came from, which is the tribes of Judah and Levi. There are 12 tribes. Some of those tribes are not doing what they were intended to do. You know, the Jewish people are not the Jewish people. They claim to be Jewish, but they are not Jewish. Jewish means of the tribe of Judah. They are not descendants of Judah, therefore they are not Jewish. They are a fake people of God. That's not to say that Jews don't exist. They most certainly do. Most of them don't know they're Jews, though. But the ones that, you know, with their little ringlets and the weird hats and the odd behavior, those people are not Jewish. They are the fig tree that was cursed to not produce the fruit they were designed to produce. You understand? Because when God called on them to produce that fruit, they were barren. They didn't have what they were there for. That's why Jesus asked the fig tree to give him a fig, and it wouldn't because it couldn't. And then he cursed it. Very uncharacteristic of something Jesus would do. Yet he did it. He did it to illustrate what was coming next for the people that that fig tree signifies. That make sense? Same thing with the parable of the tares in the wheat. Some will fall by the wayside, some will fall on stony ground, some will take root. It's talking about people, not wheat. That all parables in the Bible are talking about people and in reference to the society at large and the mistakes that they're making. Okay. Well, it's already 10 o'clock. I've been on here for 2 hours. Please like, subscribe, and share. If you feel obligated to help me out, paypal.me/JakeJohnsonBand. That money will come straight to me. You can buy a t-shirt and I'll get a little tiny portion of it, but the people that make the t-shirts get the lion's share. If you do paypal.me/JakeJohnsonBand, I get the money. So that's up to you. Help me keep doing what I'm doing if you want to keep getting what I'm giving. So, other than that, I bid you a great day. Stay safe. I'm going to play you a song because I promised to play some music. And then I'm going to get out of here and go to bed. So, here's one I hadn't played in a while. Crossroads seem to come and go, yeah. Will you hide the dead man's ghost? Lay a blanket on the ground, live softer than a sound. I forgot the words. In the morning, oh, the eagle flies with Melissa. I'll get back on track. Freight train, will it all remain the same? Yeah. Will you know the dead man's name? I really can't remember the words. Oh yeah. No, the diamond, oh, the eagle flies without Melissa. Again the morning comes, again the evening runs, sunlight streaming through the air. Did not have a care. Pick up your bags and drift to roll on, roll on. Crossroads seem to come and go, yeah. Will you hide the dead man's ghost? Will you lay him in the clay? Will you ever go away? You know the eagle flies without Melissa. want that eagle to fly without Melissa. And that's what crack will do for you. Can't remember lyrics. Alrighty. Living on sponge cake, watching the sun bathe. Smell of shrimp is beginning to boil. Strumming my six string on my front porch swing. All of those hotties are covered with oil. Wasted away again in Margaritaville, searching for my lost shaker of salt. Some people claim that there's a woman to blame, but I know it could be my fault. Don't know the reason I played here all season. Nothing is true but my brand new tattoo. It's a real beauty. It's right on my booty. How it got here, I don't have a damn clue. Wasted away again in Margaritaville, searching for my lost shaker of salt. Some people claim there's a woman to blame, but I know it's my own damn fault. Now, I love this song, and I've been playing it for about 20 years. But it's never really been something that I can appreciate, you know, something I can relate to. So I wrote another verse to it, and I hope you like it. It goes like this. Old men in tank tops, hookers and flip-flops. Broke my last 20, had to cruise on back home. But God, I still feel pain. And I do a truckload of cocaine. But my mama stole it all and she's gone. I can't have nothing, mama. Wasted away again in Margaritaville. Drinking's cheaper anyway, right? Searching for my lost shaker of salt. Margarita, here I come. Some people claim that there's a woman to blame, but I know it could be my fault. And some people claim that there's a woman to blame. We all know a good night. See you guys on Friday.